Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole on May 17th, 2022 at 5:07 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order here. Start off with the land acknowledgement. We are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6 and the Métis homeland. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. The peace treaties bind us all. That moves us to item number 2 on our agenda, adoption of the agenda. I'll ask the clerk if there are any modifications to the agenda today.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. We do have 2 modifications. I haven't had a chance yet to enter the meeting, so I'm not able to share my screen just yet. But I will read the motion to adopt the agenda, if you can bear with me for a second. That the May 17th, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting be adopted with the following changes. Postpone item 4D, Economic Development Department update to the September 20th, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Did we want to switch A and B, or are we good now?
We're good now.
Okay, thank you. Is someone prepared to move the agenda as modified? Councillor Barnhart.
Yes, Chair, I will move the adoption of the agenda as modified.
Thank you. We will call the vote. And Steve, if you could just vote verbally when you're ready, champ.
Yeah, in favor.
Perfect. That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. That moves us to item 3A. Adoption of the minutes. I assume folks had a chance to read the minutes, and we'll get a motion up on the screen, hopefully.
Not just yet, but for the next item, I promise.
Do you want? I can. I can ask for a motion for someone to move the minutes to be accepted as presented.
And it's for the April 19th, 2022 meeting.
Thank you. We'll go with Councillor Miller.
Sure, I'll take a stab at this. I move that the April 19th, 2020 minutes be accepted as presented.
All done. I'll accept that motion. Call the question.
In favor.
Thank you, Mr. Van Nieuwkerk. Moving on. Thank you. That carried unanimously, I should say, to read that into the record. That moves us to item 4A. And so we'll start off to item 4, presentations and delegations. Lenore, I think you've just come straight in, ready to go. So we'll ask you to come up here if you don't mind, and we'll start with item 4A, introduction to the Clean Energy Improvement Program. Yeah, if you don't mind. Your mic is on there, so you're ready to go. Welcome. Should be good now.
All right, so this presentation is an introduction to the Clean Energy Improvement Program in Beaumont. Thank you for your time today, for listening to this presentation. My name is Lenore Turner. I'm the environmental lead for the City of Beaumont. And today, the agenda for this presentation is introduction, benefits of the program, strategic alignment, eligible projects, how it works, roles and responsibilities, FCM funding, road to launch, and questions. So for an introduction to the Clean Energy Improvement Program. So this program, the aim of it is to increase clean energy upgrades to properties to reduce the use of energy, reduce impacts to the environment, and achieve sustainability goals. CEIP provides residential and commercial property owners access to low-cost financing to make green upgrades to their properties. The property owner can finance clean energy upgrades and pay the cost back through their property taxes over time. The costs and benefits of the upgrades through CEIP are tied to the property. And if the property is sold, any remaining costs to be paid stay with this property. So CEIP is administered by Alberta Municipalities, which is a not-for-profit association that represents and provides services to municipalities in Alberta. Alberta Municipalities acts as the coordinator for municipalities, property owners, and qualified contractors involved in this program. CEIP is currently being implemented in Devon, Rocky Mountain House, and there's a 2-year pilot program in Edmonton, and it's launching this month in Leduc. Bylaws have been passed in many other municipalities as well. Similar programs have been successful across Canada, and in other jurisdictions in Canada, this program is called Property Assessed Clean Energy, so PACE, and that's been around for a while. So benefits of this program, it aids property owners to increase their property value. It increases the resiliency of infrastructure. It lowers utility bills. It improves home comfort. It reduces energy use and impacts to the environment. It strengthens the local economy by increasing the demand for local contractors, products, and services. It helps to achieve local and regional sustainability goals by helping to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It provides competitive terms for property owners for financing projects and technical support from Alberta municipalities. And it can be used in conjunction with other rebate programs. So for example, the Federal Canada Green Homes Grant, it can be used in conjunction with that, as well as other programs as well. It also helps to educate residents about sustainable choices. And then in terms of strategic alignment, it fits in with the municipal strategic plan because it aligns with the pillars of livability. It aids in promoting the economic, environmental, technological, and social well-being of citizens. It aligns with the pillar of connecting with citizens as it empowers citizens and aids in building community with technology. Regional collaboration and leadership. CEIP is a partnership with Alberta municipalities, and it would contribute to reaching environmental goals within the region. As well as economic prosperity, it will attract innovation, help to build economic pathways, and build and maintain infrastructure. And it also was first mentioned in the Environmental Master Plan, which was approved in 2021. So participation in CEIP was listed as an action item there within the category of pursue new environmental grant funding and partnership opportunities. I think the clicker is stuck. Thank you. So eligible projects, CEIP can be used for residential and commercial properties, and eligible energy efficiency upgrades and renewable energy installations could include furnaces, windows, doors, solar panels, lighting, heating and ventilation, improved insulation, and water heaters, as well as other projects as well that are listed on the CEIP website. And how it works from the municipality standpoint is initially the municipality would need to pass a bylaw to enable it to be enacted in the community, must source financing for the program. So one source of financing is the FCM grant that we could apply for, also applied to a local bank for funding. Property owner visits the CEIP website to pre-qualify, submits that application, selects a qualified contractor on the list. Once the CEIP project is approved by the administrator, who is Alberta Municipalities, the eligible upgrades are installed. And then Alberta Municipalities would confirm the project installation, and then they would request funds from the municipality, and Alberta Municipalities would pay the contractor directly. The municipality would record the project cost on the property tax roll, and the property owner would repay the municipality over time. So essentially it's a buy now, pay later program in a sense, because they pay the entire cost back over time, although rebate programs can be incorporated where they do receive an incentive. And that often occurs if we receive grant funding. So how CEIP works from the residential property owner perspective. So initially they would pre-qualify by completing that form online. And then they would complete an energy audit on their home. And this energy audit would ensure that this energy efficiency upgrade would be needed and would aid the property to reduce energy use. Then they would sign a number of agreements between Alberta municipalities, the municipality, Beaumont, the property owner, as well as the contractor involved. And then installation would occur. And once complete, the property owner would submit the upgrade form to Alberta municipalities and AM would confirm the installation. Then repayment is the last step, and Alberta municipalities pays the qualified contractor directly to complete the upgrades. The property owner completes the post-project home energy evaluation, which is the post-audit, to confirm that the work was done, and the total cost of the project is recorded on the property tax roll, and they pay it over time. And then in terms of roles and responsibilities, the role of the administrator, who is Alberta municipalities, during the pre-launch and implementation, they would support municipalities in the development of the CEIP bylaw and the program design. They would act as the hub for municipalities, property owners, and qualified contractors involved in the program. They would lead program administration, including all application processing and technical reviews. They would onboard the contractors, they would do the website management and customer service. After implementation, they would verify that the project's complete and they would accept funds from the municipalities to transfer to the contractors. The role of the municipality prior to launch would be to develop and endeavor to pass a bylaw to establish a program in the community. This would include setting program terms and limits. These are specific financial terms and limits that can be set by the municipality as to their choice. The bylaw requires council approval. Following the bylaw, we could apply for a grant and loan through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, if applicable. We could source funds to capitalize the program from a lending institution, if applicable, and work with Alberta municipalities to design the program for the community, including determination of whether the program would be a pilot program. Following implementation, we would verify that the applicant is in good standing, execute the financing agreement with the property owner, record and collect CEIP tax, provide funds to Alberta municipalities to pay the contractors, and coordinate marketing and communication efforts and events. Funding is available from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So administration would submit an application for funding to FCM, and it's through their Community Efficiency Financing Program. If approved, this funding would be as a grant and loan to be used for the first 4 years of the program. FCM funding could help capitalize the program, pay for some internal costs to run the program, cover the Alberta municipalities administration fee, and potentially allow rebate incentives to be part of the program. So for example, some municipalities, for example, Leduc, if somebody does a green energy improvement to their home, they receive a rebate that they do not pay back. That's somewhat separate from the rest of the CEIP financing. And they were able to do that because of the FCM funding. So currently Leduc offers a $350 rebate to residents that do these upgrades. If the city requires additional funding beyond the FCM funding, then this would be from a bank or other lending institution. After the first 4 years of the program, any FCM funding would be completed and the city would be required to allocate the needed resources. So for the road to launch, the first step is obtain internal approval for municipal staff to dedicate time to work on CEIP. So we have been exploring this program and working with Alberta municipalities for the initial steps for that. Second step is presentation to council. Following that, if there is support, we would create an internal CEIP team, develop and endeavor to pass the CEIP bylaw, and then we would incorporate estimated program costs into the 2023 proposed budget. So that would include a business case, estimating possible resources for the following year that would be needed for this program. And then we would apply for FCM funding, develop targeted marketing, communications, and engagement materials, finalize the detailed program design, complete public engagement sessions, if applicable, and then the last step is to launch. So thank you very much for your time, and if you have any questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Turner. A lot of really exciting information on a very interesting program that our neighbours are looking into. So with that, I'll open up the floor for questions. First up, we have Councillor McCook, followed by Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, admin, for bringing this forward. I know early in our term, I had shared some of this information with my council colleagues in speaking with Laura from the Canadian Home Builders Association. So I know numerous municipalities are looking at this, so it's definitely good timing. Have we compared CEIP to Edmonton's HERA program at all? And are there major differences or?
I don't know too much about their HERA program specifically. They actually just launched CEIP recently as well. So they are using this program as well. And then on top of that, they have a solar rebate program as well that's somewhat associated to CEIP, partially because they got FCM funding. But I don't know much about their HERA program. Is that also green energy upgrades?
Yeah, it's their home energy retrofit accelerator.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I know this one can be used in conjunction with other ones.
Okay.
So I would think they use it in conjunction with CEIP there, but it must be fairly separate since they also have CEIP. But
Okay.
yeah, I can find out more.
No, that's good. Thank you. And then, so you said they also have the rebate for the solar panels and stuff. Can that also be worked into CEIP
This can be, yeah.
for our municipality? Okay. What if people are not able to pay back the municipality? How do we recoup those costs?
So yeah, if they are unable to pay back, so it's associated with their property tax. So if they weren't able to pay their property tax, it'd be the same mechanism.
Okay.
Because it's associated with that.
Okay, that makes sense. And then have we heard from any of the current municipalities who are currently using it, and how is it going for them? Do they have any cons or pros against it?
I've heard very positive feedback. I talked to the city of Rocky Mountain House, and they said, you know, it's been very beneficial. People feel good about it. They're using it, and they filled up. Because they had a maximum amount allowed, and they filled up in their first few months. City of Edmonton also has been very positive. Currently, it's a 2-year pilot program in Edmonton, but they want to extend it, so they're bringing it to council to extend that at the end of the 2 years, and they filled up as well. The amount of eligible applicants very quickly. So their 2-year pilot program, they already filled up for the first year, and then they'll open again for the second year. So positive is what I've heard from everybody that started it.
Perfect, thank you. And then, so when you said they kind of capped it at a certain number, is that something we would also look at, or will that be worked in through the bylaw process?
I think that would be worked in through the bylaw process, because each municipality can set the maximum amount allowed. So City of Edmonton's was much larger than, for example, Rocky Mountain House or Devon, and yeah, we would set that amount.
Okay, and would that also have to do with some of our funding, the funding that we would receive?
I think so, yeah.
Dependent?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. We'll go Councillor Miller, and then I've got Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by the mayor here. So Councillor Miller.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm really excited that this program is finally here in front of us to be presented. So you answered a couple of my questions by what you just said there. I have about 10 questions here, so I won't ask them all. I guess I'm trying to think more of the devil's advocate to this program, because I think it sounds great, but I do question when we tax this, or when we put it onto the property tax, have there ever been any feedback on if it's a deterrent to purchase that property in the in the future for, I don't know, from realtors or any kind of insight into that, because of the fact that it's tacked onto the property tax?
Right. What I've heard that is the cost is tacked onto the property tax, but also the benefits. So if somebody is buying a house, they may see it as a benefit that there are solar panels there, that there's a great efficient furnace and whatnot. So both the benefit and the cost are tacked on. And if it is a deterrent, the full cost can be paid off by that owner. They don't have to tie it to the property tax for all time. They can pay it off right then if they choose to,
Absolutely.
and then sell without having it attached as well.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a lot of noise around that. I love the fact that we're looking back to local contractors, because in turn, this only gives our community more business. So who actually decides those local contractors? Is it CEIP or is it the city, or who sources those?
It is CEIP, and they have a qualified contractor list, but they look locally. So they have, for each municipality that's a part of the program, they would have a section listed for them, and then you can pull up the local contractors there. So anybody that wants, any contractor that wants to be involved could reach out to CEIP to be on that list.
Okay.
And definitely they could be, if they meet all the requirements,
Right.
they'd be listed under the local
Awesome.
contractors.
And one thing that I learned, and I didn't notice in the presentation, I just wanted to share, was that you can actually apply, one resident can actually apply for up to 3 energy efficient sources and not just one. So they can actually apply for 3, which is pretty awesome, I think. And I think that's, I have lots more questions, but I'm thinking my other counselors will ask them too. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. We'll go up onto the big screen here. Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, followed by the Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Miller went down the path a little bit of a couple of my questions, but maybe I just look for some clarification. What does filled up mean? Does that mean that, let's say you had $10 million worth of funding available, then, you know, once that funding was allocated, you're filled up? Is that kind of the is that the idea?
Yeah, I believe total cost as opposed to number of applicants for
Yeah. And then it sounded like there would be some kind of an approved vendor list. I know that there have been government programs in the past that had approved vendor lists associated with them, and there were often, concerns raised about payment terms and the actual cost of things that are paying into the program. That may be more money than if you went and sourced it yourself, but it's through the program and it's getting financed, and it doesn't matter. You know, there's been those comments. Is it too early in the program to make comments about that, or how do we know that, you know, these vendors are going to be treated fairly, paid quickly, and that, you know, consumers aren't going to see elevated prices in a program like this?
Right. My understanding is that all the contractors are to be paid within 30 days, and they're paid directly from Alberta municipalities. So rather than being paid directly by each municipality, Alberta municipalities does it for all of them, which helps make it more efficient and quicker as well. So yeah, they're to be paid within 30 days, which I think is good. In terms of excess costs because of this program, I haven't heard anything like that. It's possible, but I haven't heard that happening. And yeah, I think we might be too early in the program to know that for sure. But my thoughts are that, it would give them more business, which would be positive to them. But I can't say for sure there wouldn't be excess costs, but it's not supposed to be a part of the program to have that happen.
Yeah, that's just something I guess we'll have to monitor if this ever does come to life. And the last train of thought here is just around land transfer, sale, liens, all of that kind of stuff. In its simplest form, it's another lien on the property. And I would hope that the CEIP program doesn't become a hindrance in the sale of a property. I think that there are a lot of benefits to home improvements that people would do to the homes, but there's also things that you expect in a home, right? You expect it to have good windows, you expect it to have a few different things. So, I hope that if this program ever comes to life in Beaumont, that, we see the positives from it, and we don't start hearing the stories about the challenges associated with a CEIP programmed home. So just a comment. So thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Steve. We'll go over to the mayor here.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. Mr. Turner, thank you for the presentation. 2 questions, if I may, Mr. Chair. First one is kind of a general query, I guess. I know each audit will determine which property needs what to be done, windows, roof,
Mhm.
furnace, and so on. Do you have any idea what the range could be? Could it be as low as 1,000, as high as 30 or 40,000? Are we talking 20,000? What's been the history of the program, those who've had audits done? And the second part of the question is, would it be paid back on taxes over a 5-year period? It could be as high as 20-year period. What's the payback period on the property as part of the taxes based on the program expectations?
Mhm. So the payment term, the maximum payment term can be set by the municipality.
Okay.
I think many municipalities make it at about 20 years maximum payment term, but it would be based on the specific upgrade being done. So the life of the upgrade. So if the upgrade cost is high and it lasts a long time, then the payment term can be longer. But if it's a small upgrade that doesn't last very long, it has to be a lower.
I remember seeing that, yeah.
So Alberta municipalities would determine the maximum repayment term for each specific project.
Okay.
And then in terms of the total cost for the energy audits, so I know that in the city of Edmonton, people had energy audits done and they were told numerous upgrades would be helpful. So they would put them all on one application, say 3 items. And they had applications of approximately 50,000 at times, but also smaller ones. It has to be a minimum of 3,000.
Okay.
So, and then they had, yeah, but then the average is 20,000 in general.
About 20. Okay, good to know. Second question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I saw in the report, Ms. Turner, we talked about opportunity to have secure funding for the program, the first 4 years of the program through a grant and loan from FCM. After that, it's on the municipality.
Mhm.
So what can you anticipate, if you can, what our obligation may be after the 4 years is over? It becomes our responsibility to administer the plan and have any financial risk. What might that risk be to Beaumont? Do you have any idea at all? You can give us any enlightenment on that?
Yeah, so that one, I think that's partly why a pilot program might be a good option to understand those costs following it, because I think it may be hard to fully understand the resources needed. And then, so that's one reason for a pilot program. And then also after the 4 years, I suppose, for example, if we did offer rebates, we would have to either pay for those ourselves through funding coming from taxes, or else stop the rebate program after the 4 years, for example. And it's still a good program. CEIP is still a great program for an individual not to pay all the cost up front and to pay it over time. It's still a good incentive even without the rebates. So I think once the funding ran out, there would need to be changes to the program, for example, like that. And then if for the resourcing in terms of, going through the, signing the agreements and whatnot, there is staff needed. So that would have to be covered, I guess, by us. And my thoughts are that after 4 years, hopefully we'd be in a good routine to have the time go down. I think the first couple of years was the highest amount of time, but after that, there would still be resources needed. But yeah, it'd be hard to fully know the resources needed until a little ways into the program. But before the 2023 budget, we do want to do a full business case to fully understand all the resources needed. So I think following that as well, we would understand better too the total implications.
Thank you. I appreciate the question. Not an easy one to answer. I
Yeah.
get that. And when the program says, part of me makes me a little bit nervous saying after 4 years it becomes our responsibility.
Right.
What might that number be? We don't know yet.
Right.
The pod program will probably help us figure that out. But right now, we just had an idea what it could be. But I appreciate not knowing what that could be, because there's so many what ifs and things can change a lot in 4 years, which we're all very aware of. So
Right.
I'm interested in the pilot project, see what it can tell us to see if the program after 4 years is viable to consider doing. If it's all on our shoulders financially and our taxpayers, it could be cost prohibitive in a way until we see the numbers where you don't know.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Got Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Chair. And interesting question from the mayor. I was kind of going down the same route. So from what I understand, after 4 years, your funding can be gone. But that's why you see these other communities doing terms and they fill up and then they can just cancel the program after that.
Edmonton's doing the 2-year program, so they can cancel it after 2 years. But to my knowledge, the other communities haven't called it a pilot program, although they could technically cancel it when they wanted to. But yeah, Edmonton is doing the 2-year pilot.
Okay. Yeah, anytime residents can get more funding for doing energy efficient things, it seems like a no-brainer to me. And if you haven't heard too many negatives from other communities already doing it, that to me is a good sign. So then it says create an internal CEIP team. So are you thinking are we thinking more employees? Because it sounds to me like it will be a bit of work, obviously. So just interested in that a little bit too. And
Yeah. So I think the team would be, so from infrastructure, myself, and possibly one other staff member, and then also from finance. There's a lot involved in finance in terms of updating the internal tax system to collect these fees. So 1 or 2 people from finance, as well as legal to finalize the bylaw, and possibly planning and development, because there might be extra permits. So there'd be a team of multiple departments, and I've heard from other municipalities, they meet bi-weekly just to check in and make sure everything's going well, just to get it off the ground. And yeah, because it would be an interdepartmental effort.
okay, sounds good. Yeah, I think the engagement sessions would go really well. I hear it's already crazy busy and permitting and new construction. So I'm just interested to see how much workload there will be. But
yeah, I think, as part of the application for the grant, we do have to do a full resource estimation for how much time it will take. So if there is support to move this forward, we would do a full resource estimation before the 2023 budget and before the grant application.
great. Thanks a lot.
Great. Before we go to round 2, I just want to triple check what I heard. The question was about resourcing. What I heard is that this initial phase that you guys are going to be going through, you can staff it with existing resources. Looks like a hell of a lot of work, but no new FTEs at this stage. That would obviously come back through budget if we're going to move forward. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll go back to the mayor, followed by Councillor Miller, and then we'll see if we can wrap up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, if you don't mind, please. So if we proceed with the pilot project, will there be any cost to the city of Beaumont to do a pilot project, except perhaps a softer cost of reallocating some personnel from department to department? That's more of an internal, I'll call it a soft cost. Is there any hard cost? Just to clarify the presentation and the report for our consideration. Is there any hard cost for us to do the pilot project?
I think that does depend on the grant funding we get. So I think that is hard to say for sure at this point. I don't know. There's also Curtis from finance here as well. I don't know if he wants to chime in on that aspect.
Sure.
Go ahead, Curtis.
So in terms of the pilot project, it would be similar to funding an ongoing project. With the pilot, we would be attaching it to the one-time grant funding. So because there's one-time grant funding, I believe the term is 4 years. Whatever that term of that pilot project would be hard costs to implement the program, be them administrative costs, operating expenses, whatnot. So they would be real costs in terms of the pilot project. Once at the end of the pilot project term, that's when the municipality would have to start bearing the burden of the ongoing program, and the most likely funding source for something like that would be taxes. Right. The intent would be, as Ms. Turner alluded to, is over the term of the pilot project to be more efficient administratively with the project, to reduce that from what it would cost, hard costs on the pilot project to an ongoing state.
Right. So if I made just a quick follow-up then, so the grant program we're expecting a grant to cover off the pilot costs, right? But for some reason, you get the grant, the pilot project would be totally on our own. But it can't say I wouldn't get the grant given the circumstances of SCM and so on, but never say never, right?
Yeah. Multiple other municipalities have gotten that grant. So I think it is a high possibility to get it, but the amount of funding for it does change from municipality to municipality.
Thank you very much.
Alrighty, well, I'll go to Councillor Barnhart if that's okay. Councillor Miller, she hasn't had a chance to jump in on this one yet.
7 more questions.
Go
Thank you very much. Sorry, I got distracted by having a water incident here, so I apologize for that. It's something I haven't heard, and I think it ties in with the cost and would we do this on an ongoing basis, is the outcomes. And the outcomes are hard to measure in dollars and cents. Probably people smarter than I can figure that out, but in terms of the environmental outcomes. So clean energy, the reason we're doing this is because we want to save the planet and let it be around a little bit longer than it might be if we don't do this. So I wonder if there's a way of, when you bring the bylaw back, tying it into those, you probably already have thought of that. The reason we're doing this is not just to help our residents, although that is definitely a plus, but it's also the outcomes around the environment and sustainability. So do you have anything you could add to that?
Yeah.
Or am I right in thinking that would be the ultimate outcome we're looking for?
Yeah, so in terms of before each person does their upgrade, they have to get the energy audit done. And so there's a pre-energy audit done and a post-energy audit done. So you can actually compare the energy efficiency of the house before the upgrades were done and after. And that's a good way to actually calculate the energy efficiency of the home. And you can get a good understanding of reduction of emissions that way. And we have access to that information.
Okay.
The energy audit.
I'm just wondering if we roll that up somehow in terms of the environmental benefit.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how to do that, but I wonder if we could explore that a little bit in the pilot to see that it's not just cost money out. There's also a benefit.
Right.
And how do you put, it's like a social return on investment, putting some kind of a dollar benefit or a number benefit to that helps to measure that, why we're doing what we're doing. Because I think it's very beneficial. It's just hard to measure it for some folks.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I think the energy audit information could be useful to start to quantify that. But I think further thought could be
looking at the big picture. Yeah, thank you very much, though.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor Miller, and I see Councillor Van Newkirk got his hand up, and then we'll see if we can wrap this up here because we're going nearly on 40 minutes on this one. But obviously a good discussion. Councillor Miller.
Yeah, just very quickly, thank you, Kathy, for that question. I was just going to ask kind of the process of the home energy evaluation. You know, we certainly don't want to put solar panels on people's roofs if the roof is about to cave in. So I'm sure that's part of the process. And then just last question is this, can this grant be combined or used with other grants from all government levels?
Yep. So if somebody wants to do a home improvement, they can use this CEIP. And any rebates associated with it, as well as any other grant program they can stack.
So it doesn't limit them in any sense. Okay, that's it for me.
Okay, and Councillor Van Newkirk, wrap us up here, mate.
Yeah, just very quickly. I was done until I heard energy auditors. Just a couple of questions around there. Who resources that, and who actually provides that service?
It's called Interguide, I believe. Interguide. So that's the CEIP website. There would again have to be qualified contractors that do those energy audits. But if there was a grant received, that could also be something potentially covered under the grant. That would have to be explored further. Each municipality can decide that.
Yeah, and where I'm going with that, that triggered a memory of mine from previous environmental home energy efficiency improvement type programs where the bottleneck was actually getting these energy audits done. So contractors were going out and providing estimates and whatnot for homeowners, and then the bottleneck was actually getting these energy audits done on the front end to even determine if you'd be eligible. And it was quite a problem. There was members of my family that went through that, and so looking forward to this program, how or what could we do as a municipality to make sure there's proper resources up front? We can go through all the work to put a program like this together and have it fail because we can't get enough of these energy audits done. How can we mitigate some of that?
I'm not sure, possibly in our communications and in engagement efforts, if we put out information to the community and about a need for this, there will be communication efforts out. So there will be an awareness that contractors are needed for this. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I think we'd have to think more about that.
Yeah, and I just kind of raise it as a comment right now because if on the front end, the energy auditor, whoever provides that service, becomes the bottleneck to the rest of the program being worthwhile and successful, then, that could be a stumble right out of the gate. So just something to consider as we explore. Thank you.
Yeah, I can ask other municipalities if they've run into that too.
Thank you.
Hey, well, that was a really sound presentation. Obviously, a lot of interest from council here. I wanted a clarification from Ms. Bajaya here on just the process. Obviously, this in front of us here as a committee of the whole, we can't direct administration to go and do a bylaw, but Have you heard enough from us that we're kind of interested? Like, how do you guys take that next step? If council hated this idea, how would you know? I guess is my question.
Thank you for the question. So from administration's perspective, this does align with our environmental master plan. And my understanding is that the plan is to bring the bylaw in front of council because that is the first step in rolling out this program. When that bylaw is presented to council, council may give it readings or may defeat it then and there. So
yeah, perfect. That aligns with our master plan there. That was what I was looking for. Just it's always awkward when we accept this information. We hope that you guys are going to go back and do the work, but if we're not directing it, all that sort of stuff. So thank you for clarifying that. With that being said, do we have a motion that we can throw up on the screen to receive as information? Do you want me to just read into it? As promised, look at this. Communication here is top notch. Anyone prepared to move this motion? Mr. Mayor, over to you, mate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the May 17, 2022 Introduction to the Clean Energy Improvement Program report be received for information. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I will call the vote. Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
In favor.
That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Before we move on to item 4B, most of us have been sitting here for quite a while with a meeting previously starting at 4 o'clock. So I'm going to call a break here. We'll come back at 6 o'clock before we get into 4B. Actually, I think we need 15 minutes because we've got to eat here. So we'll start it back at 6:05. The whole meeting here on May 17th, 2022. It's just 6:09. We'll resume back with item 4B, 2021 report to the community. And I believe we have Mr. Berezowski online to speak to this. If you're trying to talk to us, Mike, you're on mute there. We can go to Curtis if are you ready to go, mate? Okay, so we'll defer for B until Mike is able to come back and join us. So we'll move to 4C, council engagement on the capital budget. Mr. DeBlanco, over to you.
Thank you. Good evening to the chair and committee. I'm Curtis DeBlanco, the Director of Finance for the city. Before you this evening is a report providing an overview of the city's capital budget, discussion on the current and proposed future state of the capital budget process for the city, as well as a timeline for the 2023 capital budget process, which is attachment 1. And this includes opportunity for council engagement and feedback as requested. This report has been brought forth in response to a motion from the February 8th council meeting, and which requested options for council engagement on capital priorities. Before getting specifically into council engagement in this process, we'll quickly discuss a refresher on capital budgeting in the city of Beaumont. So the city's capital budget is divided into 3 categories. One is renewal, one is utility, and the other is growth. These 3 categories do form an inherent prioritization of capital programs and projects. So this first category, renewal, is in place to protect the city's existing assets by ensuring that the renewal of existing infrastructure and replacement of things like vehicles and equipment is thoughtfully planned. These renewal programs are funded by a separate reserve fund, which is supported by transfers from the municipal operating budget or taxes. This ensures there is no reliance on unpredictable funding sources such as grants to maintain the city's existing assets. And this in turn provides stability to these programs. These tax supported programs include fleet and equipment replacement, parks, playgrounds, and playfield renewal, facility renewal, transportation renewal, and technology replacement. The utility renewal programs are compiled and funded in a very similar manner, though through the utility reserve. And rather than being funded by tax levy, these are funded by, the reserves are supported by utility fees rather than taxes. And these reserve transfers are built into the rates that residents pay on their bi-monthly utility bills rather than through their tax bill. These three renewal programs funded from the utility reserve are water system renewal, wastewater system renewal, and stormwater drainage renewal. The last category, the fun one, which is growth, the projects that comprise the growth section of the city's capital budget are driven from numerous sources, including approved master plans, offsite levy models, new opportunities presented to the city, as well as other growth-related needs and requirements. Projects submitted for approval are prioritized and evaluated for reasonability, community need, operating impacts, funding availability, and synergy with other projects. In contrast to renewal programs which rely on the stability of the city's reserve funds, the city allocates funding sources that are more one-time or where the variability of these funding sources is outside the city's control. For instance, things like provincial and federal grants. These funding sources include these government transfers, as I just mentioned. The most common ones that we're familiar with are MSI, or the Municipal Stability Initiative, and the Canada Community Building Fund, which is formerly called the Federal Gas Tax Fund. Other growth funding sources are offsite levies, debt, the pay-as-you-go, which is a transfer from the municipal operating budget directly to the capital budget to fund smaller fleet and equipment vehicles that may not have the price tag attached to them that is required to be funded from grants, as well as some specific reserves like economic development and the traffic safety reserve. For each of these growth funding sources, there is a finite amount of each of these funding sources available, and this needs to be considered and forecasted when compiling a capital budget and a capital plan. Other considerations that need to be considered include the project eligibility for grant funding, which I mentioned just a few seconds ago, debt limits, debt servicing limits, and the availability of any future funding the city may receive. One of the most crucial areas that must be considered when contemplating new growth projects is the operating impacts of each of these growth projects. This may include, but is not limited to, new personnel or FTEs, operating expenses for the ongoing operation and maintenance, as well as any reserve transferred for the future renewal or replacement of a capital project. And then finally, any applicable debt servicing, which includes both principal and interest for a debt-funded capital project. These impacts are likely to require either an increase to the tax levy or utility rates to operationalize a new growth capital project. The next section in the report, which is talking about the current and future state of the city's capital budget, we'll talk about the legislated requirements for capital budgets, as well as an opportunity to socialize with council what administration will ultimately propose as a future state for the city's capital budget. So municipalities are required to adopt a 3-year financial plan as well as a 5-year capital plan in addition to our annual capital budget. These plans are updated annually as part of the budget process. Currently, council approves a 1-year capital budget. And although there is a 5-year capital plan, these plans are often subject to change year to year, and the plan for future years may significantly be different from a previous capital plan for a variety of reasons. As mentioned before, through this report, administration is introducing to council a proposed future state for capital budgeting, which would have administration propose and council approve a 4-year capital budget. This would occur on a 4-year cycle that overlaps 1 year with council's term. The budget would not roll forward like a capital plan, rather would remain fixed over a 4-year period. I wonder if legislative services can pull up the image, which I believe is on page 51 of the agenda package. Sorry for the late warning on that. Sorry? No, it's page 51. It's right in the report. Thank you. So as you can see, what all administration may ultimately propose is a 4-year capital budget that overlaps by 1 year with council's term. So, quick summary on the advantages of this. Overlapping the 4-year capital budget with a 4-year council term does provide the city with the ability to plan beyond the current budget year, better execute on capital projects that span multiple budget years, obtain best value, as well as allocate finite funding sources more strategically that align with the cash flows of the capital projects. This approach allows a new council 1 year to formulate its strategic plan, go through an initial budget process in their first year without the requirement to contemplate the capital budget, as well as gain 1 year of experience before approving a 4-year capital budget. As part of the annual budget process, the 4-year capital budget would be reviewed and reevaluated for any updates to previously approved projects. And at that time, any adjustments or amendments can be made just like any other year for the capital budget. As seen in this graphic on the screen here, administration is not proposing that this approach be taken for the 2023 budget year, rather to use the next year to better build out the city's capital plans and subsequently propose either a 3-year capital budget for years 2024 to 2026, or take an additional year and approve a 2-year capital budget for 2025 through 2026. Administration wanted to include this as part of this report to give council an early idea of the proposed future state for the city's capital budget. Next, the next section will dive into the specifics on the upcoming budget process. So attachment 1 outlines a timeline for the 2023 capital budget and 5-year capital plan. So in 2021, administration did form a capital budget working group, and this is comprised of department directors and managers to plan collaboratively across the various city departments within the organization. This team meets bi-weekly beginning in May through the release of the proposed budget in November. Work begins on these rolled forward capital plans by reviewing any relevant replacement schedules, approved master plans, offsite levy models, and other anticipated growth projects. This includes validating cost estimates, the operating impacts given the current economic state, reviews of new and updated project profiles, as well as prioritization and the phasing of projects in the capital plan. As noted earlier, an important component that must always be considered is the finite amount of funding available in the city's reserve funds, annual grant allocations, and the deferred grant pool, debt limits, and impacts of capital projects on the operating budget and tax levy. Included in the timeline in attachment 1, administration has included the September 13th council meeting to bring forward a report to council that presents these rolled forward capital plans and amendments proposed by administration at that date. This capital plan will include the best estimates available based on known information to administration. These projects, amounts, and phasing are all subject to change, but will give council an early look or a work in progress view at the data administration is evaluating prior to ultimately presenting administration's proposed budget to council in November. Also at this time, administration will seek to provide a summary of capital progress on the various approved master plans, which would aim to give council a better sense and more context as to how and why certain projects are phased in certain years. This also provides council the opportunity to have to review the information, have a discussion on the information presented, and direct any further data requested to compile and include in the proposed budget. Between this meeting and when administration's proposed budget is released in November, the capital budget working group may compile project information to be included in the budget document, either as funded or unfunded. One important thing to note is that council does have the ability at any time to direct administration to investigate potential costs, operating impacts, funding availability, and feasibility of projects, and either prepare a report or have such estimates available and included in the proposed budget report. No requirement to wait until the proposed budget is made public to inquire regarding estimates of projects. The one caveat being compilation of such estimates may require significant administrative time to compile, depending on the ask or depending on what is being asked. With that, this concludes the report. I will turn it back over to committee for discussion. Thank you.
Great, thanks for the report there. Just one thing, just to clarify, on your presentation there, you talked about the capital budget process, and you used the term give council an early idea. So you're not looking for feedback on that capital budget versus capital forecast. You're just kind of introducing that to us now. Is that your intent today? I just want to make sure that we're giving you what you're looking for.
So I just want to make sure I understand the question. You're asking specifically about the September 13th.
No, I will definitely get into that.
Okay.
It was about the, your table up there that talked about,
Yeah.
you guys want to present, you want to talk about a 4-year rolling capital budget versus, the high level forecast, which doesn't really mean much because we just kind of look at it down the road, and then we change it every year. So you said you wanted to give us an early idea onto that. And so I'm just curious are you looking for feedback from us on that now, or are you just kind of introducing that to us to warm us up, and then we'll work through that as we roll into the process?
So right now, this is just to bring the idea to council, so council is aware. If council has some, or committee has some feedback, we'll be glad to hear it.
Good answer. And I won't specific because you gave such a good answer. So I'll leave that alone. With that, let's open it up for questions. I have a few, but anyone have any questions on the presentation from Curtis here? Councillor Barnhart.
Well, if you won't ask the question, Chair, I'm going to ask the question about the timelines, because it really stands out in this report, and I think you intended it to. My question is, what's the benefit to council and the citizens of Beaumont by doing it this way? The 4-year plan.
Right. Thank you. So what it does, and it's highlighted in the report, it gives both council, ratepayers, and administration a little more structure to the capital budgeting process. There's a better foresight on what's coming in years 2, 3, and 4, and it allows administration to plan and make use of the funding sources available better. So by doing a 1-year capital budget, we have the December 31st and January 1st date that is an arbitrary line that we need to have approvals in order to proceed. We have a 1-year capital budget approval and a carry forward process to address that. But by having council approve a 4-year budget, it helps with the planning process, it helps with multi-year capital projects, and it helps us use our funding sources better, especially in terms of timing, so that we're not locking up things like the deferred grant pool to a capital project that spans multiple years. This way we can be a little more strategic on how we phase the use of those dollars. Council still has the opportunity on an annual basis to amend and adjust anything in that 4-year capital budget, just like any other year. This just adds some more value in terms of planning.
If I can, Chair, just to comment on that, I think I get your intention, but it feels to me like we're using the words plan and budget. You mean very different things by them. I know you do. A 4-year capital budget is forecasting. It's looking ahead, because you don't know what's really going to come. So it's more of a plan than a budget. But when you use budget, I think that's what's actually been approved. So you can go out and spend that money. You can actually say, this is what we're going to do beyond the date that it's been approved. So I'm just, maybe I'm doing the devil's advocate thing here, but I'm wondering about whether it is tying future council's hands more so than if we have it looked at year to year, or even every 2 years versus every 4 years. It just feels a little more, it feels less involvement from council in that budget and more involvement with the administration. That's how I'm feeling. I don't know if that's the case or not. I don't think that's your intent, but I guess the question is, why haven't we done this before? What has stopped us from doing it in the past?
To answer the question on why the city may have not done this before, it may speak a little bit to the evolution of the budget process, which we've been speaking about the last couple of years, getting a little more mature as a city in terms of a little more proactive planning in terms of the budget. I wouldn't necessarily, to use your term or use the term tying council's hands. Council has the opportunity on an annual basis to adjust this. What it does is kind of takes that arbitrary line in the sand between December 31st and January 1st out. So that we're not restricted by, okay, now the city needs to wait until approval of the budget process to start considering future capital projects.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the presentation. Just a quick question. So say I want something in the capital budget because I've held off on certain notice of motions for this particular presentation. And when it gets presented in September and say it's not in there, but no one knows I wanted it in there, how do I get it in there without it being a lot of homework for administration and council to understand the potential cost? That's kind of what I found where it's difficult for me, because it's like, this could be completely set off the whole budget and the capital budget by one thing that I'm putting forward that if we want to do or not do, but then it takes all year work and time to bring it back, but there's not enough time to actually bring that report back. It's a little bit confusing, but so in September, if it's not on there and we want something on there, how do we go about that?
Before you answer the question, maybe Sandy, do you mind just putting up the timeline on page 53, just so that folks can see what we're talking about? And before Curtis gives a chance to answer, I'll reinforce the point that you're trying to make here. I personally think September is way too late. The point that what we were trying to achieve, or what the motion was trying to achieve here, was to give council a chance to talk about the different capital, smaller capital items. We're not talking about a $30 million X facility, but some of these smaller capital items that we can beat up around the table here around council and say, yeah, we want administration to commit time to going and looking at these so they can be considered. And you guys look at whether it's above or below the line. But I think what Councillor Tessier is pointing out here is September 13, that's only 6 weeks until we've got to produce a public budget. That gives us no chance, or no chance to be able to fully look at it. So maybe to add to Councillor Tessier's question, explain the thought process around September 13 and why you landed there. How is that enough time to be able to be ready to present November 8th with our thoughts included?
Sure. So to answer a bit of both questions, I'll draw the attention first to just one of the statements that was in the report. If council has the intent and the support to proceed with gathering information on a specific capital project, there's no requirement to actually wait until September 13th to do that. We recognize that. I think what the purpose of this was trying to achieve is so that we didn't have 15 different notice of motions that say, hey, can you go and look at how much it's going to cost to pave the road out to the new dog park, right? And then someone else puts and someone else puts. So we wanted to collectively get it together. So yeah, we recognize that we can always put that motion in, but the point was to kind of take a look. Okay, we've got roughly X amount of million in grants this year. What's realistic that we want administration to look forward and to potentially include in the budget, to at least cost it in the budget? Because as you know, last time when councillors asked those questions through the written inquiry process, a lot of the answers were submit a notice of motion to get this information. And by that time, it was too late for the budget. So that's what we're trying to avoid. Yeah, and so to answer the second part of the question, administration does feel September 13th is enough time to, if there's some piece of information that is not included in a capital plan that will be presented on September 13th, that should give administration enough time to go out and compile that information and bring it back, either funded or unfunded in the budget report.
Okay, thank you. You're good, yeah? I think so. I guess it's hard, and who am I to disagree with you? So I'm trying to frame this correctly. I think what, the timeline, and recognizing we have a gap in there, right? So that the meeting prior to September 13th is July 26th. So that would be the earliest opportunity. Let me phrase it this way, and then I'll go to Councillor McCook. I just want to make sure we close the thread on this. And I hope I'm asking this in a respectful way. What would be the disadvantage? Why wouldn't we talk about this on July 26th? And give administration more time to go through that discussion? Why not do it then?
So both dates were actually considered, both July 26th and September 13th. Administration felt that we'd be able to provide a better report and a more robust capital plan on September 13th that was a little more polished, a little more clean, and have better costs and a better idea of the status of approved master plans, and then as well as have a better prioritization of things that are already in the capital plan. So the intent is just to provide a better report to council on the front end, and that should allow administration enough time to address any of these council's plan or more information requested from council.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from that is, you know, instead of us on July 26th just coming out with this wish list, if the capital budget is trending in a certain way, better to have that much information so that we know, hey, we may only have X amount. So there's no point even looking at these 3 or 4 projects. Is that what I'm hearing? You have a better sense of where that capital budget process is going to be?
In short, yes, the capital budget process will be further along. We'll be closer to what administration would recommend as a proposal. And then that should give council a better opportunity at a closer look of what administration's proposed budget ultimately will be. And that should help guide council on their decisions to request any further information.
Thank you. I said I'll go to Councillor McCook, but Councillor Van Nieuwkerk did have his hand up. Sorry, Steve, we'll go to you there, champ. And thank you for the response on that question.
Yeah, you bet. I was just going to pick up on Councillor Barnhart's comments around the 4-year approval. And I'm just wondering, Curtis, if you could give just a 30-second Coles notes of that again. So the whole intent would be to do a 4-year look at capital planning and approve a 4-year capital plan. Can you just give me a 30 seconds on that again, and then I'll collect my thoughts and come back at you here.
Sure, and thanks for the question. So I'm just going to flip to the paragraph and summarize it, and I'll add a couple more context. So overlapping this 4-year capital budget with a 4-year council term, it's staggered by about exactly 1 year rather. It provides more stability and a better opportunity to plan from an operational standpoint beyond the current 12-month period. The city should be able to better execute on these capital projects, specifically the ones that span multiple years. And more likely to be more proactive through procurement, especially looking at things that the work is being done early in the year, can start looking at procurement in the fall rather. So that's one. And then also it gives administration the opportunity to do a better job at planning with the grant funding. Because once again, we get allocations on an annual basis, and it gives us a better opportunity to plan the timing of cash flows for these projects, as well as the receipt of these funds. And then from a strategic standpoint, a new council comes in on a 4-year basis. There's the strategic planning process. This allows the strategic planning to happen first, and then subsequently look at what are the 4-year outlook on capital projects for the subsequent 4 years.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you. They got my juices flowing again here. So I 100% get that from a planning, executing, forecasting, budgeting standpoint. And I can see exactly why you would want to do that. And if I was in your chair, I'd want to do that too. The problem that I see is that it is exactly opposite of what residents are asking us to do. Residents are asking us to be more nimble, are asking council to take, more control of the capital budget and not just approve what's put in front. Residents want to they want to be able to provide ideas that are novel ideas and new things that pop up and have them considered. And I know the answer is you're only one notice of motion away from having those things considered. Sure, I get that too. But, to Councillor Munckhof-Swain's previous points, if the opportunity for council to provide the input is, September rather than July, it cements the dollars that are allocated to the projects that, are being considered that council doesn't know aware of. I get that. But I guess the problem I have with the 4-year piece here is that it can and will secure funding for projects on a longer term, and then projects can carry over more easily. They can be delayed longer. And I worry about the accountability of getting those things done. Right now, the budget process 1 year at a time provides accountability to get that stuff done so you can go do other things. And I 100% see the challenges with that as well, because there are carryovers in budget. There are weather issues. There are carryover items that happen. But yeah, I'm not seeing the merit in a 4-year capital from a residence lens. I can 100% see it from a city administration lens, but I'm not seeing it from an the lens of a resident asking council to consider new novel things and be nimble with some of the things we spend money on. So I don't know what others think about those thoughts, but that's kind of where I'm at on that 4-year piece. So
Thank you. I think that was more of a statement, and that's appreciate that, Steve. And unless you had a question to go along with that. No, well said. So with that, we'll go to Councillor Munckhof.
Thank you, Chair. I like the premise of this idea. I think it, especially as a new council, it gives them time to kind of, as you said, formulate a strategic plan and go through a bit of a budget cycle when they're first coming on. I also think that it will empower council to make better decisions with more time to fully understand projects as we move forward. And it will allow admin to look deeper into these projects. I'm hoping that the timeline does work out as intended, to Councillor Munckhof-Swain's point. I think it will be important for us to be able, and to some of Councillor Van Newkirk's points, it will be important for us to be able to get some of those things that the residents are really asking for and would like to see into the capital budget, and get some of those costs back, so we're able to determine whether it's realistic to put them in or not, and whether they can go in long term. So yeah, to the long-term planning, I think this is a good thing, and I think it's a good start. Perhaps there's some massaging to be done as to how this will all actually work out as intended, but I think this is a good start.
Perfect. I don't see anyone else wanting to speak. Steve, I think you're good there. So with that, we'll throw up a motion to receive this as information. Thank you for putting all the effort in and working through that motion. I think, every year we continue to improve the budgeting process, and the evolution is great here. So looking forward to seeing how this works. Can I ask someone from council to move this? I see Councillor McCook, you won that race.
I move that the May 17th, 2022 capital budget report be received as information. Thank you.
And I've got to move us to 4C. So with that, I'll call the vote. Councillor Van Newkirk, if you don't mind reading into the record there.
in favor.
That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving us back now. Do we have Mr. Berezowski with us? Perfect. All right, we'll go back to item 4B. Mr. Berezowski, over to you, champ.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, committee, and to the members of the public. I am Mike Berezowski, the Director of Communications for the City of Beaumont. My apologies for earlier. Been a little under the weather today. I'm presenting tonight the 2021 draft annual report to the community. It is a summary of accomplishments and activities of the City and Council of the past year, and closes off the reporting for the 2017 to 2021 strategic plan, municipal strategic plan from Council. Once we're through this, it will be translated to French, posted on our website, and there will be some news release and some social media informing the public about some of the highlights of what's in the report and giving them the opportunity to read it. And in future years, in the next year, the report will reflect the updated strategic master plan of this council. That's pretty much it. The report speaks mostly for itself. I'd be happy to take any questions from you.
Thank you, Mr. Brzezowski. Great job. I'm assuming that everyone read the report here. So thank you for not going through that in detail. Great job as always. Any questions for Mr. Brzezowski on this one? Start with Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Brzezowski. It's a great summary of what's been going on. Same question I asked the last time I saw this. Is it going to be available in hard copy or is it only available online?
It will be online only this year. Last year was an exception because of COVID. I think there was direction from the committee at that point to do distribution to all homes, to do a print run and do distribution to all homes, but it is not included in budgeting this year.
I'm sorry to hear that. So I actually do think there's some benefit in having a hard copy, but I guess the budget wasn't approved for it. There's not much I can do if there's not support for that of the rest of council, but I'm disappointed because I do think there are a number of people who look forward to the hard copy. But myself, I had difficulty distributing them last year, so I can't really speak to whether or not that would be a benefit or not. You're our expert, so if you think it's not worthwhile, I guess we'll have to go with that. But I'm disappointed because I think we're moving away from hard, tangible reading material, and I think it's beneficial. It's a well-done document, and I sure hope people will read it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnhart. Any other? Yeah, Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it looks great. I think it's the visuals of the report improve year over year, and kudos for that. I've been spending a lot of time in one of our neighbors' facilities, Leduc, at the LRC. And one of the things I see Leduc doing a good job at is pulling out specific stats and things that the community is proud of and making, those pull-up style banners and putting them out there. And there's some did you knows, and there's a few more things that I think that they're doing to drive home some of the information that is included in the 2021 in our 2021 report. And I just wonder if that might be considered, moving forward. I don't know that we need to go back into this one and dig out and do that, but if we look at the ways we can digitally present the information, we have all kinds of screens in the new BSRC. There could be some rolling things. We have all kinds of square feet to put up some of those did you knows or highlights from 2021, or here's the projects. And, those tools are quite reusable actually, because you can print a new tarp and put them in and then they roll up and roll down, right? So, the initial cost is a few $100 a piece, but then they upgrade for $100 a pop kind of thing. So anyways, just a comment around that is I think that the digital sharing and stuff is going to be important, and a potential bridge between not having hard copies or I guess a bridge between, not having hard copies and only doing online might be pulling out some of those bits and pieces and sharing them with the community in more specific ways at trade shows, events, in our foyers, just that kind of thing. So offer that for comment, and just something I've seen somewhere else that I think is working well because I stop and read them, and yeah, that's what I got.
That's an excellent suggestion, Councillor, through the chair. And just thinking off the top of my head, one of the things that we could do is create some digital images that could be displayed at the BSRC on the screens with some of the facts from the report. So excellent.
Yeah, that might be a good way. Might be a good way to start off with it and just kind of feel out how that could work. And there's logistics with everything, right? So yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
You bet. A whole bunch of flashing mics, but Councillor Barnhart has a quick point that she wants to get in, so I'll allow her the time. Very politely asking for this.
I shouldn't have given up so quickly. The last one, Mr. Brzezowski, would you be advertising in the newspaper that these are available online, letting citizens know that they can get it, they can get the information?
We would likely be including it. We will be doing a news release and trying to get some earned media out of that rather than advertising, and it would likely be something that the mayor and I could consider for mention in his column as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. What was can you repeat it slowly, please?
Sorry, Councillor. We would be doing a news release to get some earned media rather than paid media. And we would also, I would also be discussing it with the mayor for inclusion in his one of his columns in the newspaper.
So we are still doing the ad in the paper, but we're not going to mention it.
It would not be,
Wouldn't be a paid ad, but don't we still have a page that we have city information on?
that is paid advertising. The intent would not be to do paid advertising. The intent would be to include it in the editorial copy in the newspaper, in earned media.
Strike two. Thank you.
Okay, let's go next to Councillor Miller, followed by Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Now I feel like we're kind of in a debate about printing this document. So I'm kind of conflicted. I think we should lean more towards the online technology version. But I do see the benefit to some citizens who do like to read the hard copies. So I guess Councillor Van Nieuwkerk kind of brought it up with the word bridge. You know, if there's something we can look at where we can have, you know, maybe some copies distributed at places such as the library or the BSRC, if people do want to take a copy. I think creating it as a copy in the publishment of the paper for every resident is overkill, in my opinion. But I actually did hear from residents when we were campaigning that they thought it was a little bit of a kick in the face to be spending that cost on a printed copy when, you know, people were losing jobs and things like that. So I guess that's ties into the second question around the cost of how much it actually takes to print these sorts of things and what that actually looks like, what we're saving by not doing it. And that's about it.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Miller. It depends on the print run, but it would run into the thousands of dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Brzezowski and Councillor Miller. We'll go over to Mr. Mayor Bill Derelict.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. Just wanted to touch base with Mr. Brzezowski and the administration. This is a beautiful looking document. It's really well done, very well laid out. Especially like page 7 on the 2020 highlights. There's lots of nice statistics in there that Steve mentioned we can maybe try and push up from time to time as a did you know, a nice friendly reminder. It's a really well done document. Great photographs are being used in it as well, really to show the diversity of our municipality and all that we do in Beaumont. So I'm very proud of how this document looks and the information it contains. I do agree with you, Mike. We did talk about a while ago using my mayor's column, which is provided by the newspaper at no cost, to do things like this, push out information in this report. So as I know, we did not pass a budget for printing of this document. So it's not going to happen this year unless we do something about that in a different way. But I empathize with some people who want to print a copy. I empathize with them, but there's a vast majority of people who don't want us to spend the money on doing the print, which is why we didn't pass as part of the budget. So hindsight's never wrong, but it is what it is, and we did it for a reason. So again, Mike, great work on this document. Thank you very much for your efforts, for you and your communications team. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You bet, Bill, and great comments. And we all know why you like page 7 because it's got a photo of the football field on it. But we'll carry on. But no, your points are well taken there. I think, Mr. Brzezowski, every year, I think you're prepared for this conversation. Every year we have this conversation. And I don't think anyone here is trying to take away. And I think actually everyone's spoken about how great this document is. And the reason why we do, or some people do want to print it is because it is so great. So I hope that's not detracting away, but all good points being raised. Councillor McCook looks like last to speak on this.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, mine was just a comment as well. I think the document looks really great. I think you did a great job, and I just want the max amount of people to be able to see it and read it as many as possible. But yeah, just wanted to say great work. Thanks, Mike.
Great. I don't see anyone else. I will just reinforce that many more people would read the mayor's column than a small advertisement on page 8 or 9 in the paper. And so to get earned media, I think this is the professional approach that Mr. Brzezowski and his team are taking. Yeah, I really like the ad that Councillor Van Nieuwkerk mentioned about some of the digital space that we have in here. So good discussion. I don't see anyone else here. Thank you, Mr. Berezowski, for coming in. Hope you feel better, mate. We appreciate that. So with that, we'll look for a motion to accept this as information. Mr. Mayor, Ernest Keep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the May 17th, 2021 report of the community report be received for information. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will call the question.
In favor.
That carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Which moves us over to item 4D, presentation around a department update, legal and legislative services. So I'm sure this is going to be full of energy from Ms. Sandy Bougere. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor and committee. I have that very privileged position being the last item before adjournment, so I will try to be brief and concise. I'm Sandy Bougere. I'm the Director of Legal and Legislative Services. With me here today, I also have Shalane Winter, our City Clerk and Manager of Legislative Services, and Joanne Dargy, who is our Manager of Legal and Intergovernmental Relations. So, Legal and Legislative Services is the newest department at the City of Beaumont. With our community's growth over the last several years, the need for having legal and legislative expertise and support has likewise grown. Even though the work we do means that we do have a lot of face time with members of council, I hope this presentation will give you a more comprehensive view of the work of LLS. We're a little bit like an iceberg. You've only seen the tip. So this slide provides an overview of the departmental structure. LLS is the department within the Internal Services Division for the city. In addition to the director and 2 managers, we have 4 other full-time positions. We have a records coordinator, that's Lorelei, a legislative coordinator, which is currently vacant, an administrative assistant, which is Stacy, and an executive assistant to mayor and council, which is Shaima, who you all know. The next 2 slides provide an overview of our department's core functions and programs. As I mentioned, a lot of this will be familiar to members of council since our department is that interface between administration and council, especially when it comes to navigating the municipal governance framework. But I will provide a brief overview of each area. So the first area is the council meeting management. This includes everything from agenda and meeting management for council and committee of the whole, as well as providing procedural advice and clerk support. We have made a lot of behind the scenes improvement in this area in the last few months. You may have noticed some of these, like we've revised all the council and committee of the whole report templates. With the idea to make them easier to read and more helpful to members of council as well as the public. We've made a number of enhancements to the minutes, one of our most precious documents. We've made a number of revisions to our internal agenda management process to make things a little more proactive. We introduced a new process for councillor inquiries, as well as a process for informal information requests. These enhancements are intended to help support council and also improve the municipality's transparency to the public. We also provide support to all members of council for notices of motions and procedural matters. It may interest members of council to know that since this council took office in October, we've had 22 councillor inquiries and 17 notices of motions. So we've definitely been kept busy along with the rest of you. The second area is the mayor and council administrative support. And this is a lot of the work that Shima leads. And this includes the administrative support to mayor and council, dealing with event management, calendaring, expense claims, and reporting. And here too, we've enhanced the way we do our council expense reporting to improve our transparency. Under boards, committees, and tribunals, we do the work of managing appointments of elected officials and public members. So that includes the recruitment process for public members. And this is also where we deal with the clerking and administrative support to our subdivision development and appeal board. And earlier, at the end of 2021, with the help of council, we made some improvements to the composition of the SDAB. The next, I'll talk about elections, orientation, and census, oh my. In this area, this includes the implementation of the municipal census and the school board elections, which often gets overlooked, development and implementation of orientation and other training, and the municipal census. So you will have experienced a lot of the orientation improvements. Hopefully you did experience the orientation improvements. And we tried to take an approach where we looked at setting up council for success. We wanted to not only meet the legislative requirements of what must be provided in orientation, but spread it out and make it more comprehensive, and then offer follow-up training so that council really has the opportunity to learn while they're going through that first year. So that work is ongoing, and it's really been a pleasure to be able to work with council on that process. Our election saw 4,500 people come through the voting stations, and we also navigated the pandemic by having quite a few extra days for voting to help spread people out. Moving to the next set of programs, these will also be somewhat familiar to Committee of the Whole. We provide legal services and support for bylaws. In this area, this includes coordination of legal services requests, and this will come from our internal departments, development of legal templates for those things that can be used by template, creating a library of legal opinions, as well as bylaw administration, which includes drafting as well as support and advice on bylaws. So this is really an area of growth for our department, and this is something that we've been focused on over the last year. The work that we've been doing in this area really helps limit or reduce our overall municipal liability. And it also helps ensure that we build that corporate knowledge by having some focus on that internal keeping of that knowledge. Under intergovernmental relations, we've been monitoring intermunicipal activities, providing or coordinating briefings for elected officials who represent the city on those intergovernmental bodies, and reporting on the activities to council. So you would have seen that we have been working diligently to provide better coverage and better support to members of council who sit on various intergovernmental bodies. And at our next meeting, we'll also be introducing some resources to council to help them with their own reporting back to council on those activities. So that's coming on May 24th. Under records and Voip requests, this is where we provide advice and direction on records retention and storage, as well as receiving and responding to freedom of information and protection of privacy requests and other privacy matters that pertain to being a public body. Finally, City Hall reception. So sometimes people forget that this is part of our department, and it really is maybe an underappreciated area. This includes helping callers and visitors to City Hall and addressing several administrative functions for the entire LLS department. So this role has expanded over the last few months. So this slide provides you with a little bit of an overview of some of the very exciting projects that you can expect to see from LLS in the coming months. So the first item there is the review of the meeting procedures bylaw, which is well underway. So this is actually a really substantial initiative, and the intention here is to make the bylaw as plain language and user-friendly as possible, and to be comprehensive but not overwhelming with the procedures. So we've been working very diligently on that, and we're quite excited to be able to bring that back to council. We have the review of the Code of Conduct bylaw, which council would have already seen. So that bylaw will be coming back to council for consideration. I believe that's May 24th as well. We also have a review of support to councillors for participation on intergovernmental entities. And I've mentioned that we plan on bringing some new resources to council. Council expense policy and Alberta municipalities resolution report, those are scheduled for Q3. Right now, council's expense policy is combined with the remuneration policy, and there's not a lot of direction. So our area will be reaching out to our friends in finance and working on a draft policy, and then soliciting feedback on the draft from committee of the whole. And hopefully that will be helpful to council to have a more flushed out policy. On the Alberta Municipalities Resolution Report, we've been doing more work and being more proactive with providing information to council on potential resolutions, as well as the opportunity to provide a resolution should council wish to pursue that option. And then last but not least is the bylaw project review update. Council has seen little bits of this. We did some review work for the business bylaw. But you'll be seeing a lot more of the fruits of this labor in the coming months, especially now that we're at a point where we've reviewed a number of high priority bylaws, and we're ready to bring some improved options forward to council. So that's a pretty comprehensive overview of the things you can expect to see. So our successes and challenges, this is always fun to navigate. I've talked about most of these already. There were a lot of challenges with the 2021 municipal and school board elections because of the pandemic. Revamping the council orientation was another council success, or another LLS success from my view. Council may disagree. The councillor inquiry process and the enhancement to the legal and legislative services. In terms of challenges, it's really about navigating a complex legal and legislative framework. This is where we work every day, and these are the kinds of problems that we are asked to provide advice and direction on. Change management and service improvement. So we have been fairly ambitious with what we've undertaken this year, and we are dealing with a lot of change management. This is true for the whole organization. The city of Beaumont has experienced a lot of growth, and there are a lot of high priority, high profile projects in flight. So that change management piece affects all of administration as well as council. And competing demands. This is always a challenge for us because we're trying to find that right balance between maximizing our resources and not spreading ourselves too thin, and getting the priority items done, as well as some of those really nice to have things done. Like most of you, I find myself at times wanting it all. So it is difficult sometimes to keep the balance in mind. That's really what I wanted to present to Committee of the Whole, and I did want to leave some time for questions or comments from the committee, so I'll stop speaking.
Great update, thank you. We'll start with Councillor Miller, and we'll work our way through.
Perfect, thank you so much, Sandy. I don't have any questions. I like how you grouped council orientation into the successes and challenges. So anyways, I just wanted to comment that thank you, all of you, for everything that you've done to get us to where we are right now. And you guys continue to help me be successful and and understand a lot of the processes and everything. So without you all, I would be a lot more lost than I am. So thank you so much. That's my comment.
Great, thank you, Councillor Miller. I don't see anyone. Actually, I do. Councillor McCook.
Yeah, just to echo Councillor Miller's statements, I really appreciated the council orientation process. I think it was very thorough. So yes, that was great. And I look forward to when you guys come back with the Alberta Municipalities Resolution Report and stuff to see what's on there, and then perhaps we can add something. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. No questions, just kudos. We're now almost 7 months into our term already, and I think every meeting is getting stronger in terms of our efficiencies. Our meetings are being run quicker, agendas are more precise, more crisp, and I think we're spending our time talking about issues, not figuring out procedure. And that's a huge improvement, I think, from previous experience I've had. So speaking to myself when I say that, but I think we've really streamlined our processes and making our meetings more efficient and more user-friendly for those people who are tuning in once in a while and listen what's happening. So, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure the council does as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I'll continue with the theme. I'll be very brief. I just wanted to acknowledge you put up the City Hall piece, and apologies for in advance for embarrassing Stacey, but just the improvement there. And you know, I've seen multiple times how many people have interacted there with Stacey, and also residents reaching out directly to me who have had the time spoken on the phone. And you guys all know how great she is and able to answer all those questions and figure out who in the department can be there. So again, sorry for embarrassing you, Stacey, but just a great job. And I'm glad that the work there was highlighted. So with that, I don't see anything else on this one. So we'll ask for a motion here. Councillor Tessier, you need to do some work tonight. So maybe do you mind making that motion? We'll give them a chance to put it up on the screen. There you go, mate.
Thank you, Chair. Much appreciated.
It's coming. There you go.
Surprised it's not a paragraph like the last time I did this. I'll move that the May 17th, 2022 Legal and Legislative Services Department update be received for information.
Thank you for that. We will call the question.
In favor.
Just waiting on you, Councillor Tessier. And your motion, wonderful, that carries unanimously. Thank you for that. As we amended the agenda, we don't have item 4E tonight, which moves us to item 5, council inquiries. We've got the 2 information onlys there, A and B. Does anyone have any questions or inquiries this evening? Seeing none, that moves us to item number 6, adjournment at 7:10 p.m. Thank you very much.